All the changes brought up the overall weight to 273 grams, with 61% front and 39% rear weight distribution. Welcome to Big Sun Hobbies. Recently, I've been posting videos of my SCX24 E1 Rock Bouncer, and I've been getting quite a few requests for build information. Today, I will share my current setup on my SCX24 E1 Rock Bouncer. Please keep in mind that it is still going through a bit of the fine-tuning, and a bit of changes are still planned, but nonetheless, I hope the build information helps with your own E1 builds. As always, my build philosophy focuses on a few things. 1. Lower center of gravity. 2. Shoot for 60-40 weight distribution. And 3. Keep the weight as light as possible. Let me start from the most obvious, the chassis and the body. I start with the SCX24 deadbolt as my donor rig. Although any model of SCX24 can be used, the longer rear links of the deadbolt makes it easier to extend the wheelbase if you choose to go that route. The 10 pieces of the 3D prints for E1 replaces the chassis and the body of the donor rig. And the beauty is that the body is tucked and is lighter than the original chassis and the body. Now let's cover the electronics. Motor. I'm using the stock motor. With the lighter weight and the stock motor should last a bit. And if when the stock motor does go bad, I plan to install the barrage motor. ESC and receiver. I'm using the stock ESC receiver for now. In the future, I'm not sure which way I'll go with it. I might decase the ESC to shave off some weight. Since E1 has an ESC tray, it will be easy to decase and mount it. I might also pick up a lighter ESC such as a Furitech Lizard, but I haven't decided which route I'll take with it. As for servo, I'm using AGFRC servo that I picked up from Amazon. It is basically a Reefs Micro 99 without the name and the cheaper cost. As far as I understand it, they are the supplier for the Reefs. It is much stronger than the Emax servo that I'm using on my rigs, and so far I'm very happy with it. One thing, if you do decide to go with the AGFRC or Reefs Micro 99, the servo is quite a bit longer than the stock servo or even Emax servo, so you will run into clearance issues on the front end. Battery. I'm using the stock battery that has been modified with the JST connector. Since the ESC sits in the back, it requires longer battery wire. Furthermore, the fan makes it difficult to access the ports on the ESC. So I made a JST connector which allows me to much easily connect the battery. I have more details on how this is done on my All About Battery video, so I'll post up the link at the top right corner, so go check it out. Now let's take a look at the suspension. First, we'll take a look at the shocks. I'm using modified stock shocks. I added about 3mm preload on each shocks using O-rings, and I also added dampening by adding green slime. I have it mounted upside down. Normally I do this on my 1/10 scale rigs to lower the CG, but with SCX24 it is so light that the CG benefit is almost none. But I still go this route because I noticed that by having the shock body below, it helps to keep the grease inside and minimizes leakage. I'm not a big fan of flex, so this setup works well for me. Links. My original plan was to use the deadbolt rear links and use the C10 Jeep front links for the front, giving me a bit of extended wheelbase. But I ran into a slight issue. As I mentioned earlier, the AGFRC or the Reefs Micro 99 servos are quite a bit longer, and I ran into clearance issues on the front end. In order to address this, I ended up using C10 or Jeep rear links on the front side. Since the rear links are much longer, I couldn't use the upper Y link, and so I ended up converting it to a 4-link setup. In the future, I plan to run the high clearance links. Now let's take a look at the tires and wheels, and let's start with the tires. I'm a big fan of RC 4-wheel drive Rock Ripper tires. It's super soft, providing great traction, and the height of the tire really helped with lowering the CG, and it's also great with clearance. Unfortunately, on an E1 Rock Bouncer, it felt a bit too small, especially with the extended wheelbase. In my search for bigger tires, 2 tires stood out: the aggressive mudslingers and the less aggressive thread scramblers. I decided to go with less aggressive scramblers. It raises the CG compared to the Rock Rippers, but it seemed to fit the Rock Bouncer body much better. As for foams, the bigger scramblers requires foams. It is just too big and soft to run without foams. In my case, I'm using the stock foams for the rear. It's a bit firm, but it should soften up with the bit as it breaks in. For the front, there are a couple of options. One option is to cut the stock foams to give the bite that it needs, but I decided to go with the second option of using Crawler Innovations micro soft foams. Wheels. With the higher CG from the bigger scramblers, the E1 can benefit with a bit of weight on the wheels. But at the same time, I do not want to add too much rotational weight either. I think the RC 4-wheel drive stamped steel beadlock wheels might be a decent choice, but unfortunately I no longer have those. So I ordered Tirio wheels. They look awesome, but I noticed a slight issue. The offset of the wheels brought in the wheels way too much, narrowing the width significantly. With the extended wheelbase, E1 can benefit with the wider width. So I ended up borrowing MT Hobbies race wheels, which has a bigger offset from my C10. It worked perfectly, right balance of weight and offset, and they look awesome. Now let's look at the weight distribution. As far as the brass weighs, the donor deadbolt weighed in at 228 grams with a weight distribution of 53% forward and 47% rear. Even with the battery and the ESC relocation, I know that it can benefit from having some brass weights up front. So I added Hot Racing brass knuckles and Hot Racing brass diff cover to the front end. All the changes brought up the overall weight to 273 grams with 61% front and 39% rear weight distribution. It's a great performer. Although it needs more runtime, dare I say my E1 is performing better than my C10 comp build. Time will tell, but I am impressed with the E1 so far. Hope you found the information useful, and don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching Big Hobbies.